The details in a single leaf can preoccupy me for hours. This is what I spend my day doing, attempting to recreate the beauty of nature with a brush and paint. Nature has always been a very important part of my life. Even as a child, I spent almost all of my holidays in the Western Ghats, and my family is full of plant lovers. In fact, my granduncle, Father Cecil Saldana, was the first to document the native flora of our home state of Karnataka back in the 60s, collecting about 14,000 samples over 5,000 species. And he did so using my grandfather's house in Hassan as his base. So my mother has these memories of being a young child watching the entire expedition unfold. So I came to associate plants with adventure and excitement and discovery. But I've also realized that that's not a sentiment most people share. So when I decided to start painting plants about 3 years ago, I knew I wasn't going to just paint roses and sunflowers. I wanted to study the kinds of plants that botanists like my uncle were working with and bring them to the people. This is one of my favorites. It's a tree from the Rudraksh family whose seeds we use as prayer beads, and its sprawling buttresses can support heights of up to 130 feet. And this is a magnificent wild fig tree. When it bursts into fruit, its branches are laden with thousands of tiny figs, attracting hornbills and barbets and bulbuls and fairy bluebirds. Both these trees form part of a book that I collaborated on with two botanists from the Nature Conservation Foundation, Divya Mudappa and T.R. Shankar Raman. And they work on a rainforest restoration program in the Western Ghats, and they came to me to help them communicate their love for the trees that they work with. You see, we have about 2,500 native tree species in India, but currently we have only about 4% under cultivation. But they're trying to change that. They tried photography at first, but it just didn't work. The forests were so dense that you couldn't differentiate a single tree from the sea of thick vegetation surrounding it. Besides, these trees were just too tall. You couldn't capture them in a single camera frame. But with illustration, we were able to study the buttress up close and then climb further up in the hill to be able to see its crown rising above the canopy. And in the final illustration, we could stitch the two together for an accurate representation of what that species looks like. So this is my desk job on a good day, sitting by the side of the forest highway sketching trees. And on a bad day, I'm standing in a puddle of leeches and it's raining and I'm not in the mood to be photographed. But yeah, every single tree was sketched on site in the jungle, and then I would take it back to Bangalore to render it in watercolor. The result was that we were able to document 30 of the most iconic tree species of the region through their structure and through their flowers, seeds, fruit, leaves, making them the focus rather than just the background scenery. And that's something that really interests me. You know, plants aren't merely decorative. They are the fundamental building blocks upon which all life is based. They are the primary producers for life on land. They are the starting points of our ecosystems. They are the reason why the earth is sustainable for life to this day. And yet we view them as these passive creatures, robbing them of their agency, their creativity, and their tenacity. But maybe we can change that. This is an elephant yam. Its gigantic flower is pollinated by beetles. So rather than emit the sweet smell of nectar, it emits the foul stench of rotting flesh. And where can you find this? In villages across India, its tuber is eaten as a vegetable. And these alien-like creatures are called sundews. They grow in soils where nutrient content is poor, so to compensate, they turn carnivorous. Those sticky little tentacles ensnare insects, digesting them for their nutrient content. You know, you must have learned about the Venus flytrap and the pitcher plant in school. They're carnivores that are native to the Americas. It's too bad we didn't learn about the sundews that you can find an hour outside Bangalore. This little weirdo is called a Ceropegia. I encountered him on a trekking trip just outside Bangalore with my cousin Siddharth, who's a botanist, my sister Saniti, who's a writer, and my friend Prasen, who's a photographer. And together we applied for a National Geographic Young Explorers grant to compile all of these crazy, wacky plants into a book for anyone over the age of 8 to show them just how fantastical plants can be. Thank you. So that should be out sometime next year. And, you know, I know that the reason why I love plants is because of my childhood experiences and because of the people in my life who opened my eyes to their beauty. But what if you don't have those kinds of experiences? There's a term for the phenomenon that's going on right now, and it's called plant blindness. It refers to our increasing inability to truly register plants as living beings. You see, plants lack certain visual cues. They don't have faces. We don't view them as threatening. So with the onslaught of information that our eyes receive every second of every day, we deprioritize registering plants. Our eye-brain system in the visual cortex tends to filter out information that it sees as extraneous. But just stop to think about that. Are plants really extra? Or is it concerning that the average Indian child could name their top 10 favorite cars, but hardly a handful of plants? And will the next generation that's disconnected from nature bother to fight and save it? I'm hoping that botanical illustration can play a role in reigniting our love of plants and cultivating our respect for their sophistication and complexity. As I conclude, every single plant that I've shown you today is native to India, and we are one of the most biodiverse regions in the world. Doesn't that make you proud of what we have? Doesn't that make you want to protect it? Thank you.